Hello everyone, this is Daughter Darkness, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about this upcoming Avengers game made by Square Enix. We don't really know that much about the game, but I'm still on a little bit of a high after Infinity War, and it was just making me think about this game more and more. All that we really know at this point is that there's going to be multiple games, and it's starting with one about the Avengers that is coming at some point in the future. We have no idea when. Maybe we'll see more at E3 this year or later on, whatever the case may be. We've got very little to go on now. But the more I thought about the game, just on a conceptual level, because that's all we've really got to go on, I've grown a little bit more concerned about the game, and more concerned that they're not really going to be able to pull it off. It is possible, but I just think it's a really difficult task. And the main issue there is the fact it's, well, the Avengers. In terms of story, I think starting with the Avengers is fine. The MCU is so popular, everyone already knows all of the Avengers, and you've got enough time to give each of them a proper characterization and all that. That's not really the problem. The problem is gameplay, because along with characterization, when you're making a licensed game, it's certainly a superhero game, the most important thing to get right is the gameplay. And the most important thing about it is that it has to feel authentic. And this is the big thing that the Arkham games achieved. All four of them, even Origins. Whether you like the individual Arkham games or not, as a whole the series did just nail its main objective. Every game made you feel like you were playing as the real Batman, not just someone who looked like Batman. The combat, the movement, the stealth sections, it's all crafted so well that you do feel like Batman is on the screen. And it's a similar sort of thing with those Spider-Man games that people like. Spider-Man 2, The Ultimate Spider-Man, whatever the case may be, those just nail the feel of playing as Spider-Man, and hopefully the Insomniac game later this year achieves the same thing. So this is really the issue. If you're doing the Avengers, you have to nail that same level of authenticity that the Arkham games have rightly received so many plaudits for, but you have to do it 6 times in the space of one game. And this is assuming they use the 2012 Avengers lineup from that film. If they want to go for a different Avengers lineup, then it'll obviously be different. But just assuming we go with that 2012 Avengers films lineup, then we've got 6 heroes that are all going to feel very different to play as, but they all need to feel, while they're different, they all need to feel good and real. It's not enough to be fun, you also have to feel like you're really playing as the Avengers. So I'm just going to go through each of the Avengers from that 2012 film and talk about the things that you really need to do to try and nail the feel of that Avenger. And I'll start by lumping together Iron Man and Thor, because for those two, the most important thing that you have to get right, the thing that is absolutely crucial, if you get this wrong, the game will be bad, and that's flight. There are rumours that Rocksteady, who made the Arkham games, are now working on a Superman game, and their task will equally be to get the flight mechanics right. And it's the same here, except you have to do it with 2 different heroes. Because the thing is, when you fly, everything just has to be on a huge scale. If you take Arkham Asylum, for example, if Batman could fly, well, you could get from one end of the island to the other in about 3 seconds. So everything needs to be bigger when you're playing as those 2 characters. And on top of that, the controls need to be really tight. No game, as far as I know, has really been able to nail that feel of playing as a character that can fly, not flying a plane or a starfighter if it's a Star Wars game. No game has really been able to nail a character that can fly. Superman 64 is obviously known as one of the worst games of all time. Another example was DC Universe Online, which was a little bit more successful, but as an MMO, you weren't playing as any particular character that you needed to feel right as. And the game was also fairly slow, and it would kind of transition between the flight mechanics and the combat mechanics quite clunkily. And you can't do that when you're playing as the Avengers. You need to achieve a level of fluidity between what they're doing on the ground and what they're doing in flight. For Iron Man, I suppose you can kind of go like, almost like Infamous combat with flight. As a third-person shooter type thing, with Iron Man using his various weapons in combat as well as being able to fight people up close. But you also need to be able to have him properly fighting while flying, whether you're flying against other flying enemies or planes or whatever that you have to keep up with. You need to be in full control of Iron Man as he's travelling very quickly in the air. My guess is, because Iron Man is probably the most popular of the Avengers, at least of that original lineup, they're probably going to put the most focus on him. So if any of them's going to feel really right, it would be Iron Man. Now as for Thor, he has the same issues with the flight and stuff, but his gameplay will obviously probably be a bit more close quarters using Mjolnir, because that's basically the core of his combat, whether he's throwing it or just using it in close quarters. And then the lightning could probably find interesting ways to be integrated into either special attacks or just sort of adding an elemental focus to one of your normal attacks. I think Thor has a lot of potential to be interesting and fun, because if you give moments when it's right to use lightning and moments when it's not a good idea, sometimes when you're going to need to throw Mjolnir, sometimes you're going to need to fly to get somewhere, I think you can add a lot of variety here. And if you add in a proper progression system, then it can work like a good RPG as well. For Iron Man, you could even add a story focus element to that. Sort of like in the Arkham games, you might end up with a door that you can't get past, or a puzzle you can't unlock until you've unlocked a particular feature of your suit. So Iron Man has to go back home and basically add this feature to his suit. So for both these characters, flight is by far the most important thing that you have to nail. And it's the reason these two probably need more development time than any of the other characters. And that's certainly the start, and those are the ones, I think, out of all of them that you really just need to get right. So now moving on to the Incredible Hulk, and I suppose really with the Hulk there's not that much potential for thoughtful mechanics, because, you know, Hulk smash is basically going to be the long and short of it. It would effectively just be brawler gameplay, except you're a giant green thing instead of just another person. This is where you can focus on building up combos and then being able to do special attacks and that sort of thing, and then maybe going up against stronger and stronger enemies, so you do actually have to put a bit of thought into it. But still, you're playing as a virtually mindless monster, so there's probably not going to be that much in the way of tactics that you're doing here. You could probably shake up the gameplay here a bit by having sections where you're just playing as Bruce Banner and have him try and solve puzzles or whatever, and then maybe thrown into situations where you've got to try and stay in control to actually get through something, and then maybe you lose control and you become the Hulk, and then you have to defeat all the enemies so you can calm down and then solve the problem. Something like that I think would be an interesting way to do the Hulk. But here, like, in terms of combat, there's not that much you can do with him, because, well, it's basically just going to be about smashing stuff, which, I mean, I'm sure will be fun in its own right. As for Captain America, this is probably going to be mostly close quarters gameplay, but a little bit more tactical, maybe a bit like the way the Arkham series works, where you've got a variety of different enemies that come in and you need to use different attacks on each of them, and then balance which enemies you're going to attack and how to counter and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, Cap has his shield that you're going to have to find ways to integrate into combat. You can probably use it to stun enemies, but also to guard and to throw it, as Cap likes to do. There isn't that much to say about him. It's just about making a combat system that's fun and integrating the shield into it in interesting ways. I guess another thing that you could do, as he's basically the leader of the Avengers, is have him directing the others while he's fighting. So you have to fight a bunch of people, but at the same time you've got to send Iron Man off to do something, and send the Hulk somewhere, and send Black Widow somewhere else. But for Cap, I think getting him right as a character is probably more important than the actual gameplay elements of it. And it's probably the same for Hulk as well. But certainly Cap, it's his moral standing and his position as leader of the Avengers that you have to get right. As for Hawkeye, it's probably a bit easier to do it with him, because you basically just give him archery combat. It's not something new, so it's probably fairly straightforward to do out of all of these. I go with a bit of a stealth focused thing, so you're either sending him to infiltrate bases or something like that, and you've got to remain unseen, or at least keep yourself at distance, because, you know, as skilled as Hawkeye is with his bow, if he's faced against a bunch of enemies with machine guns at close range, he's gonna die. So the way you have to make it interesting is by making the player think about where it's best to place themselves and how to quickly deal with a bunch of enemies and get through and achieve whatever the objective is. And then for Black Widow, I think you could almost go with like a hybrid of what Hawkeye has and what Captain America has. Again, I think stealth would be the main focus here, because really that's what her and Hawkeye have, that they bring to the table that the others have, because they're all superpowered, but these two are trained to infiltrate and that sort of thing. Obviously at close range she's a lot more skilled than Hawkeye. It'll be about making her fast and agile, more so than Captain America or Hulk, who will be stronger but slower. And again, similar to the Arkham series, which I'm obviously going to keep coming back to because they're just the gold standard of superhero games, I think if you have a counter-based system where you have fluid movement between all your attacks, And Black Widow also has a bunch of different gadgets that she can use to gain an advantage and also counter and all that sort of stuff. I think you could probably make something quite fun there. So that's basically a very brief rundown of what I think about each of the characters and how to realise them in an Avengers game. I think there are ways to make this game really fantastic, but you need to spend a lot of time and effort into nailing that authentic feel of all 6 heroes. Hopefully this will kickstart a good number of superhero games, whether they're made by Square Enix or not. But the most important thing is you need variety, but you need everything to feel real. It is a huge task. They basically have to achieve what the Arkham series is the gold standard for achieving 6 times. So that's just what makes this a big task, and I hope that they can deliver. I'm sure that they're going to put everything into it to try and make this game as good as it possibly can be. Hopefully we get to see a little bit more at E3 this year, but if not, hopefully it won't be too long before we get a bit of an idea of what the gameplay is going to be like here, because that's really where this is going to be won or lost. So that's all I have to say. What do you think about this upcoming Avengers game? Please leave your thoughts in the comment section below the video. And while you're down there, please like this video if you did. And if you liked it, then check out my other videos and subscribe to this channel. And as always, thank you for watching.